There are 3 tasks on MyMaths that I'd like you to complete today. The first one's measuring angles, the second one constructing triangles, and the third one bearings. I've attached your MyMaths logins in the resources to help you section at the very bottom. Just remember that the very first login is the school login, which is Uppingham and Acute. The first task I'd like you to complete on MyMaths is the one called measuring angles. This is simply to reinforce the skills that you already have. You can use the protractor on screen to help you measure the angles, and I'm going to demonstrate that for you now. So in this first example, I can simply click and drag my protractor to the point where my angle is being formed. I can then use the rotate button to click and drag and rotate to where my line is. And lastly, I need to click on either of the 2 zeros to put the correct numbers in. Now, because I'm measuring from this right hand 0 here, I need to click on that to get the correct numbers. If you wish to change, you can just simply click on the other side and it will switch the numbers round. So we want this set of numbers just here, and to help me see my answer a little bit more easy, I can drag the slider to where my angle is and then move my protractor away. So this is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 8 degrees. The same thing applies in the second example. I can simply click and drag my protractor to the point that I need to measure. Use the rotate tool to rotate it round to my line. Again, I'm measuring from the right hand 0, so I'm going to click on that. I can use the slider to get a much more accurate answer. So in this one, I think we've gone all the way around to 110 plus another 7 degrees. The second task extends the idea of measuring angles to constructing triangles. We have done this already in school. So there's 2 types of different triangles that you could be asked to measure, and I'm going to go through them both now. The first type of triangle that you could be asked to draw is where you're given 2 lengths and the angle between them. You start off by drawing one of your 2 lengths, so in our case we're going to start off with 6 centimeters. You draw your line. You then want to measure the angle that you're given from one of the 2 sides. In our case, our angle is 64 degrees, so we're going to put a mark. Once you've done that, you're going to draw a line going through that mark, which in our case is 5 centimeters long, the length that you have been given. Lastly, you can join those 2 lines together to complete your triangle. Make sure at the very end you label your triangle so you know which angles and which lengths you were given. The second type of triangle you'll be asked to draw is where you're given 1 length and 2 angles coming out of either side of it. Start off by drawing the 6 centimeter line in our case that we're given. We can then measure one of the angles from the left side, so the first one we're given is 54 degrees. We can put a mark and extend a line which goes through that point. Make sure the line that you draw is extended reasonably long because we want the other angle to intersect with it. We can then draw our second angle, which in our case is 30 degrees, from the right hand side. Again, extend this line through until you hit and intersect with your other line. At this point, they tell you to erase any lines that are sticking out. Personally, I would ask you not to do this because I consider those lines part of your working out. And lastly, just like before, make sure you label the angles and lengths of your triangle. When you come to complete this second task, you'll be asked on MyMaths to draw on a bit of paper these 2 types of triangle. You'll determine whether the answer is right or wrong because your constructions will be accurate in front of you and you'll be able to measure one of the missing lengths that MyMaths will specify. Your final task is measuring bearings. It's very similar to what you've done in the previous task in terms of measuring angles. However, you need to remember to place your protractor on the place that you're going from, and the fact that a bearing is simply an angle measured from your north point clockwise, and it always has 3 figures. In this particular question, it's asking us what is the bearing of the ship from the lighthouse. Now, because we're going from the lighthouse, that is where I need to put my protractor. I can assume that my north point is going up the line, and so I simply measure clockwise from 0, 0, 0 until I hit my line, which is in the direction of the ship. In this particular case, I reckon we get just beyond 60, about 63 degrees. Now, our bearing is always 3 figures, so instead of writing 63 degrees, I need to put 0, 6, 3. In the second example, we're going from the lighthouse again, so I simply want to move my protractor to the lighthouse. Again, we can assume that the north point is going upwards, and I need to measure clockwise around until I hit my line. In this particular case, I think it's just 1 degree over 250, and because that's already 3 figures, my answer is 251 degrees. So what I'd like you to do, please, is have a go at those 3 tasks. I'd recommend doing it in the order that I've presented in this video, just because they lead on from one another. Lastly, I want to remind you about the additional tasks that I set earlier in the year on Dr. Frost Maths. There's a short 10 question summary for every single topic that you've covered right up to the end of the algebra block of work. If at any point during this lockdown you're looking for some additional work to do, I would strongly recommend completing these tasks. It will help to keep all of these topics that we've done fresh in your mind, and I'll continue to update it with all the work that we do remotely as well. If you are struggling to complete some of the work from today's lesson, then please do not hesitate to get in touch via comment on Show My Homework. I'll try to make myself as available as possible and get a reply to you as quickly as I can. If the issue requires a little bit more input from myself, I might ask to arrange a time to meet on Teams where I can give you some personalised help with that specific problem.